What's up, guys? Brandon over at LS4 King. Gonna do a quick video today. It's kind of like a how it's made. It's been one hell of a week. I've been punched in the face by my drill. I have fought this endlessly. But my main reason for doing this video is I want to share some of the stuff I've learned along the way because I'm a self-taught fabricator. So I'm hoping some of these tips will save you guys a ton of aggravation. So what we are working on is the tubular subframe fixture for the LS4 subframes. This is something I've been working with Aaron from FabWorks on. We've got a comprehensive CAD file that lays everything out. This 1/4-inch steel top had all of the critical mounting locations, such as the cups that go to the body, motor mount pads, control arm pads. All of that was indexed into this 4-foot by 4-foot plate and pre-drilled so that it would make laying things out and offering a consistent product much easier, right? That was the easy part. The plotting everything out on the top based off the CAD file was simple. The table is extremely flat and accurate. That was a little bit challenging. But to get to this point where, the fixture table minus everything that's sitting on top, probably about $400 in material and cut time on the plate. And I don't even want to admit how many hours I have into it, making sure it's perfectly flat and square. I mean, I probably have 30 hours into building the table. But once we moved on to going by the CAD file and bending the tubing, I was immediately humbled. You guys know that I work with chromoly tubing and mild steel pretty often. I do roll cage stuff, control arms, trailing arms, all that. But the level of accuracy and the margin of error we had on this project was like next to none. So, what happened? Well, along the way, you can see there were multiple attempts at trying to make this work. A lot of wasted material trying to get through the process. So what I was actually trying to do was replicate our print for the primary rail. And, all the data you could possibly need is here to duplicate the side rails. From the tip of the cope where it intersects the cup to the beginning of the bend radius. And then we had all sorts of measured out points along the way, right? So mapping everything out on the tubing isn't bad. That's pretty straightforward. You're starting with a straight piece of tube, you index it, you put all your measurements based on the print. But a couple things I wanted to share to speed up the process. Marking the tube and having it accurately marked 360 around can be a big pain. I picked up these clamps from Westgate Performance from Motion Raceworks. They didn't come like this. I modified them. Real simple trick. So these are like 30 bucks. They're pretty cheap. They're intended to mount Motion Racework accessories onto roll cage tubing, and they come with 2 1/4-inch bolts and nuts. So it's 4 pieces, 2 bolts, 6, I guess, if you count the nuts. So you got 2 clamshells, 2 bolts, 2 nuts. The one thing I found is that, trying to do this as one person and not having multiple hands, it was a pain in the ass to put these together. So I actually drilled and tapped one side to accept an M8 125. So you can take a piece of tubing, put your clamshell on, drop your bolts in from the opposing side, because that's not the side that's threaded, and tighten it up. And now you have a way of perfectly marking your tube 360 degree around in relation to the rest of your measurements, using the tip of the tube as a reference point. This was super, super helpful, and it's something that only takes a couple minutes to make for marking out all the dimensions on your tube. Like if you take a look over here, I was able to mark the tube 360 degree because the tube gets flipped in the bender since this is a compound bend. So it just made referencing all my measurements much, much easier than just putting a single dash, loading it in the bender and hoping for the best. Another thing it was great for is if you cut a simple steel plate and put it on top, you can put a magnetic angle finder and you can index the tube in the bender. So fire it up, you're at 0 degrees because you're level. Put this on your tube, boom. Well, let's see, we need to index the tube, I don't know, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, 25. And now you can rotate the tube back since this is clamped on your 0 line, you know that you have an accurate measurement every single time. So I can't say it enough. These little clamps for motion are perfect. I'm sure somebody makes product like this, but I've been cranking on this thing. I wanted to get it done, so I had to work with what I had. It's something that you guys can definitely replicate at home. Super simple. You know, we talked about it a little bit. Digital angle finder. You absolutely need one of these. You cannot rely on a level when you're working with a margin of error of 1 degree. So I learned that the hard way, as you can see by all my sample pieces. So digital angle finder, digital protractor. This is another great product for measuring your bend angles. I got this right over at Home Depot. It's just a Husky brand one. Zero it out. Follow the outside of your bend so you can see. Like for instance, what was this one supposed to be? We've got 40 degrees, and it was supposed to be 38, so I was 2 degrees off. You know, it might not sound like a lot, but 2 degrees down here equates a lot of misalignment up top when you're trying to hit target points. So another really valuable tool. Something else I think you should have, and this is going to be specific to your tube bender. Companies like Mittler Brothers make these really cool protractors. Now, the dies, I have a 7-inch bend radius. That's what this is. What these are super helpful for is finding your starts and your stops. A lot of prints will just give you a start bend line, but you can actually calculate it here. So, you know, for instance, you know, if we were going to do a 25 degree bend, you set the protractor at 25 degrees, tighten it down. Your bend start is 0, and that's indexed on your machine. And then your stop point would be, you know, about 3 inches and a 1/16. This has been another invaluable tool for being able to replicate stuff based off of print. Highly recommend protractors. Carbide scribe, again, another cheap tool you can get at any hardware store. This is great for marking the tubing in a precise fashion so you can index back to 0. And then once you have all the tools that you need, assuming you have a bender and you can do some of this fabrication, what are some things to avoid? Some mistakes I made, right? So again, if you look at the print, you'll notice we have a very short run with a notch right at the end of the tube. So this is a 1.931 inches from the center of the cope to the edge. So I mean, we're talking a 2-inch stub of tubing that needs to get bent. Well, like a dummy, I decided I would try it. Clamped it in the tubing bender, you know, on my marked, went to bend it, and what happened? Well, obviously the tube folded over on itself. The leg length wasn't long enough for the follower to pull the tube all the way through. Funny story, I actually did get it to work. If you're in a pinch and you are working with a short piece of tubing, it's not long enough for what you need, or it's not ideal. Let's say it's just the right size, because that's actually what I did earlier. A way that you could avoid this is using a tube insert. So I slid an insert into the end of the tube. It just friction fit. Let's see. I don't know if I got a burr in here, but you know, if this was cleaned out, it would slide right in, right? So what this did, I just put it flush with the face of the tube, and it kept the tube from crushing upon itself. Because over here, this side rail, we actually had that problem. I was trying to use the drop that I had left. It was a very short run, and this saved it from crushing the tip of the tubing. So in a pinch, use a tubular insert, put it inside your tube, key it up in your bender, and it'll keep that form at the end so that you can utilize the tube. Now, the next problem that comes in is that if you do bend the tube that close to the bend radius, and you need to notch the tube after the fact, like I needed to do, you have a problem. If you're using, you know, something like the Notch Master from JD Squared, this is one I've had forever. A couple other companies have a variant of this. You can see you need a pretty good portion of tubing to clamp it onto. So what we had done was when we were bending that, we factored in an additional 8 inches or so that we could actually clamp the notcher to the leg length and just blast a hole through it. It actually hole saws all the way through, drops your tube with a perfect notch. That works great. So be conscious of that. If you have a notch that's in close proximity to a bend, you want to leave yourself enough length so that you can accurately notch the tube, because chances are you're like me and you only have a $300 notcher. You know, you're not out there with a $3,000 plasma notcher or something to that effect. So another thing to keep in mind. You know, aside from that, take your time. It is imperative that everything is flat, square, level, indexed, within a degree, especially when you're talking about something with compound bends. Again, this was a super humbling experience for me. I've done tons of fabrication and I struggled with this beyond belief. But it really just took me kind of stepping back, reevaluating what I was using for tools, you know, and honestly rushing. I was getting to the point where I was frustrated. I just wanted it done. So I kind of had to just take a minute and get my bearings. But if you do that, then you end up with tubes that actually fit based off the print. Everything's coped nicely. Everything meets the cups where it should. So now we just got to put a couple magnets on here and start burning it out. Like I said, wanted to share these tips with you. I know we got a lot of fabricators in the group. You guys are doing projects at home. Hopefully these tips will help you out. I'm sure some of you are going to have comments to tell me how dumb I am and how easy some of this could have been with some other tools. Hey, if you've got the resources, great, share them with me. I'd love to learn. I never stop learning with this stuff. So hope the information was valuable. I'll talk to you guys soon.